everybody! Today I'm going to be bringing you a tutorial on how to make this adorable water lily hat. This is the first version of the water lily I made. I later on did decide to go with a dark pink. This is what the hat looks like. And this will just give you a little bit of an idea of what it's going to look like, but I think I'm going to change the placement later. For the flower portion of this video, I used yellow and pink in I Love This Yarn, a 4mm hook or size G, a very loved darning needle, and shears as scissors. To start, we're going to get everything out of our way. The yellow is the first color we're going to be working with here. We're going to start off by making a magic ring. Go up under that first loop, pull your yarn through, and chain 1. Now we're going to work 8 half double crochet into this ring. Once you're done, make sure you pull that tail tight. Make sure you have your full 8 half double crochet. Next, we're going to be joining in the front loop only of the very first half double crochet we made. From here, we are going to be chaining 4, slip stitch in the second chain from the hook, preferably in that little back bump just because it makes it look nicer. Slip 1, slip 2, and make sure to get that last one at the bottom there, and that's our third slip stitch. Next, you are going to slip stitch in the front loop of the next stitch. From here, we are going to restart our repeat and work this all the way around. Chain 4, slip stitch in the second chain from the hook on that back bump, slip stitch the final 2, and then slip stitch into the next stitch in the front loop only. And that is going to be the full repeat for row 2. Now that we're at the end, we are just going to slip stitch into the bottom of the very first chain we made. And then we are going to go into that back loop that we left untouched, and we are going to be slip stitching right into it. See those bumps right there in the back that kind of make a visible ring? The first one is a little bit hard to find, but if you need to, just kind of pick up a random loop around the area behind one you're sure is a loop. From here, we are going to be chaining 1 and putting 2 single crochet into each of the unworked back loops. If you need to check your stitch count, just make sure you have 16 single crochet total. Once again, we are going to be slip stitching into the front loop only. We are now going to be chaining 5. Just like before, slip stitch into the second loop from the hook in that back bump, and into the last 3 stitches. And slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch. We're just going to do our repeat all the way around, and we will have a total of 16 stamen. From here, I am just going to be slip stitching into the base of the first stamen made. And now the yellow center of the flower is complete. I'm gonna cut my yarn and pull it through the loop. And this is what it should be looking like. Now we're going to be making a slip knot with our pink. Feel free to replay that if you need to watch it again. Go into the first back loop. And we're going to slip stitch to join. Now we are going to be working an increase and then a single crochet. Increase, single crochet. And we are going to be doing this all the way around. We're going to be joining once again into the front loop of the first single crochet we had made. This time we're going to be chaining 1, making a single crochet, and now we are going to be chaining 5. In the second chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch, single crochet into the next, half double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and now we are going to double crochet around the post of that first single crochet we made. From here we are going to slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch, single crochet into the next front loop, and then our repeat restarts, and it starts with a single crochet in the first front loop, work your chain 5, slip stitch in the second stitch from the hook, single crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet into the next, and double crochet into the next, and double crochet around the side of that first single crochet. Slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, and then your repeat restarts with a single crochet. Now make sure you're remembering to do all of this in the front loops only. The last stitch we're going to be working is a single crochet, still in the front loop only. And now I'm just going to slip stitch right here into the base of that first petal we made. I'm just out here straightening these petals because they look a little whack. Kind of looks like an octopus. So now we're gonna need to be slipping into that first back loop that we left unworked. By now you're probably seeing the pattern on how this flower is made, but don't worry, there's 3 more rows left. So we're gonna slip stitch into that first back loop. Hold on a second. Going to chain 1, 1 single crochet, increase in the next stitch, and now our repeat is going to start. 2 single crochet, increase. 2 single crochet, increase. And the reason why we only did 1 single crochet at the beginning is to kind of put space between where our increases are sitting. It just helps round things appear more round rather than like an octagon or something. I'll come back when we're at the end of these repeats. So after our repeats, we should have 1 single crochet space left. And then we are going to slip stitch into the front loop of the first single crochet we made. Next, we're going to be slip stitching backwards just so we can make sure our petal rows are a little bit offset. So see how I'm going back here? And make sure you're going into that front loop only. If I can get it to focus. So you go backwards and slip stitch into the first front loop behind you. I'm gonna count that as my first single crochet because it sits up quite far. So from there we're gonna chain 6. Slip stitch into the first loop, single crochet into the second loop, half double crochet into the next, double crochet into the next, and now we're going to treble. So you're going to yarn over twice, insert your hook, and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through the last 2. And just like before, we're going to do a treble around the base of the first single crochet. From here, we're going to skip the next stitch and slip stitch into the next. Single crochet into the front loop of the next, single crochet into the next, and the repeat starts. Chain 6, slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, and then treble into the next. Yarn over twice, go into your stitch, pull up a loop, and repeat. treble over the post of the single crochet, skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the front loop of the next, single crochet into the next stitch, and then our repeat starts on the single crochet and chain 6. And we're just going to be repeating this all the way to the end, and I'll meet you there. So here I am at the end of that row, and we're going to skip the next stitch and slip stitch into the next, and then we are going to single crochet into the front loop of that last stitch. I'm going to slip stitch right about here just to kind of end that row more nicely. And like the other rows, we're going to slip stitch into the back. I just gotta find which one I'm starting with. Alright, so remember we went back one, so I'm joining into the last, wow, English, into the last back loop that we had left, and chaining 1, a single crochet, a single crochet, a single crochet, and 1 increase. So we are doing 3 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around. Now we're going to increase into the last stitch. And once again, we are going to join into the front loop of the first single crochet made. This row should have resulted in 40 single crochet. As you can see, I've already slip stitched into the front loop of the first single crochet made. From here, we're going to be chaining 6. And slip stitching in the second chain from the hook and all the way down. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be working around this little numpy nump. Once you've slip stitched down your whole chain, you're going to slip stitch back into that same space we just chained up from. And then we're going to single crochet 5 in the front loops of the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to start our repeat. Chain 6. And sorry, I'm out of focus there. Slip stitch in the second chain from the hook and all the way back down. So that's 5 slip stitches total. And then we slip stitch into the stitch we were just working our chain up from. Now we're going to single crochet into the front loops of the next 5. And then we're going to restart our repeat with our chain 6, and I'll meet you back here when we have completed the repeats. Really quick, this is what they look like, just like the stamen we made. So I have just about finished my repeats. Just finishing up my 5 single crochet. Or actually it should be 4 single crochet. Slip stitch at the base to join. And here I'm going to be cutting my yarn because we're going to be moving back a stitch, but since we're working through both loops this time, I think it would just be easier to cut your yarn and join back a stitch or two. So make your slip knot. Insert your hook back one stitch. If I can get it to focus. Come on, darn it, focus. It only wants to focus when it's not convenient. Well, anyways, you're going to be joining with a slip stitch. See, now it focuses. And so you should be able to count those 5 single crochet, or I'm going to call them single crochet. And we're going to start with a double crochet into the last one, a double crochet into the next one, a half double crochet into the next one, a single crochet into the next one, and a slip stitch into the last one. And from here I'm going to chain 1, and this time we're going to move that front loop out of the way just to give us a nice center to our petals. So make sure that you're able to count your 5 and go to the first one, pull that loop out of the way, and you'll see a hole underneath it. Push your hook into that hole and make your slip stitch. Same with the next one. You're going to move that loop out the way. There's a hole underneath, see? And you're going to push your hook in and you're going to make your single crochet. Yarn over, move your loop, go into the hole, make your half double crochet. The same method is going to be used for these next 2 double crochet. Just move your loop, find the hole, and make your double crochet. And I know my last one's a little wonky, I didn't notice until now. And see, it just gives this nice little accent to the center of the petal. So at the base of the flower, we are going to skip the next one and slip stitch into the next 2. And then there should be 1 stitch we're skipping before we're back to the bottom of the 5, but count down from the top to make sure that you're going into the right stitch. So we're going to double crochet, double crochet into the next stitch, half double crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next one, and then we're going to slip stitch into the last. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to repeat that but backwards and into those holes under the loops. So we're going to slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and then the last double crochet before we're back at the base of this flower. And at the base we're going to skip 1, and then we're going to slip stitch a second time, and then we're gonna skip one before we're back at the bottom of our 5. So count down to the 5th one, and then we're gonna double crochet into it, double crochet into the next one, half double crochet into the next one, single crochet into the next stitch, and slip stitch into the last, and then we're going to chain 1 and repeat that in reverse down the other side. Slip, single crochet, half double crochet, and just repeat all of this until you've worked around all of those petals, and I'll meet you back here. Now that we're done working around all of those petals, we're going to skip one and do our 2 slip stitches. Now I'm going to make sure I cut a tail that is long enough for me to be able to sew this flower onto the hat. So for all these tails, I just pull what's sticking out off the top underneath the flower, and then I just kind of knot them all together and cut them. I'm not going to weave them in because they're going to be sewn between the hat and the flower itself. Just make sure you don't cut the tail you need to sew it on with. But this is what your completed flower should look like. So you can see my first one compared to the darker yarn I swapped to. I think that was a good choice because that pink is just a little too bright for me. So here's just that comparison of the new flower on the hat. I think it looks much better now. So this is the first one I made. I think I'm gonna omit that bright green around the brim. I don't really want it, but this is done with reverse single crochets, and I think it adds a professional look to the beret. I think I'm gonna add some accents around the edges using this thread, just to kind of make it look a little bit more like a lily pad. Something like this. Alright, I'm back with the supplies for the hat, and we're going to be using a dark green, a slightly lighter green that matches your lighter thread, a 4.25mm hook, your scissors, your darning needle, and I'm not sure if I'm going to add beads to replicate water droplets, but I have a few different sizes of these kind of pearlescent glass beads. Some of them are kind of flat. I don't think I'm going to use the teardrop ones, if I can get it to focus. There you go. I think I'm going to use the flat ones. And then I have some smaller ones, just to change up the sizes. These ones are super tiny. I don't know if I'm going to use those. Now that everything's out of the way, I'm going to be using Varsity Green from Big Twist to make the base of the hat. Make your magic ring, pull your yarn through and twist it, grab a loop from your working end, and chain 1. I like to make sure it's unwrapped, just makes it easier to tighten it when we're done. So we're going to chain 1, and we're going to put 12 double crochet into this ring. Once you've closed your magic ring, I'm gonna count, and you should too. Slip stitch through both loops, and we're gonna be working through both loops for all rows except for one. Now we're gonna chain 2, and this is not ever going to count as a stitch. Increase with double crochet into each stitch. So 2 double crochet into each stitch, and that will bring us from 12 double crochet to 24. Now that we're completed our increases, we're going to be joining with a slip stitch into the first double crochet made. From here we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to do 1 double crochet into the first stitch and increase into the next stitch. And we're just going to repeat this all the way around for our 3rd row. We should be ending this row on an increase. So now we're going to join with the slip stitch into the first double crochet we made. We're going to chain our 2, and we're going to do 1 double crochet, and we're going to do an increase. And then our repeat starts with the 2 double crochet and then the increase. And the reason we're staggering our increases again is to make sure our rounds are more round and less like a stop sign. So again, repeating all the way around, it is 2 double crochet and then your increase. And I will meet you back at the end of this row. So here you should see where we're going to be ending with that last double crochet, since we only did 1 to begin with. Join with your slip stitch, and as always, start your row with your chain 2. This time we're going to be doing 3 double crochet and then our increase. All the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So now that we're done, we're going to join with a slip stitch. Ignore what I'm doing on screen. I'm going to tell you really quick what we're doing for the rest of the top of this hat. We're going to be doing all of our increases all the way through the row where you do 8 double crochet increase. So right now you should be on 4 double crochet increase, 4 double crochet increase. And we're just gonna make sure we add 1 more double crochet between the increases for each row. Once you've completed your 8 double crochet increase, I will meet you back here. Don't forget to stagger your even count rows for the double crochets, just to make sure it doesn't look like a stop sign. Pause your video here, and I will put the pattern on screen. Alright, you can see here that we have our 8 double crochet and the increase. So this is the very last row you should have worked on. From here we're going to chain 1, and we're going to single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So now that we've single crocheted all the way around, we're going to join with the slip stitch into the first single crochet, and now we're going to work our way backwards. We're going to chain 2, we're going to double crochet 4, and we're going to do this in the back loops only. This is the back loop row. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, 3 double crochet, 4 double crochet, and now we're going to do a double crochet increase. So only do half of the double crochet in the next 2 loops, and then connect them at the top to make 1. You can go back and watch that again if you don't know how to do a double crochet increase. And from here we're going to go into our 8 double crochet and then our decrease, and we're going to do that all the way around. I'll put the rows of decreases you're going to work up on the screen now. So now we've completed all of those rows of decreases. The last decrease row we're going to be doing is all half double crochets. It is going to be worked 1, 2, 3, 4 half doubles and then a half double decrease. So you're going to be chaining 1, doing 2 half double crochets, a half double crochet decrease, and then we're going to start the repeat of 4 half double crochets, and then we're going to do our half double crochet decrease. So again, that is 4 half double crochets, half double crochet decrease, and then we're going to work that all the way around. So there's going to be 2 half double crochets left after our last decrease, and we're going to slip in the first half double crochet to join. From here we're just going to be chaining 1, and we're going to be working all the way around. And if you want to switch colors, this is the time to do it if you want that colored edging. I don't for this version though, so I'm just going to go ahead and do my chain 1 and put 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Alright, so you're gonna chain with the slip stitch. You guys, it is 12:30 in the morning. You're gonna join with the slip stitch, chain 1, and watch carefully because this is how you do a reverse single crochet. It's kind of like when we slip stitched back 1, only we're doing single crochets and we're gonna repeat this. So you can see that nice little pulled together edging it makes. And we're just going to continue like this all the way around. So once I'm to the end, I like to chain 1 just to kind of secure those loops on there. And then I'm gonna cut my yarn long enough so I can weave it in. And I kind of like to wrap it around to kind of blend that seam a little bit better. So I'm gonna pull it from behind out through the front, and then when I go to sew it in, I am going to pull it around like this and then sew it in. that just makes the seam a little less dramatic. But this is how I make all of my berets. Berets, berets, I honestly don't even know. I'm tired. But I do this pattern for them for every one I make. This is the only version I make, and it is the only version I want to make. It's super stretchy. It fits me just fine. It fits my mannequin heads just fine. And hopefully it will hold the weight of this flower just fine. So here I need to decide where I want to put this flower. I do think I'm gonna put it to the side a little bit, but only because I want to decorate this hat with multimedia, since multimedia tends to be my niche. But maybe in the future I will consider centering it and simplifying it. So I'm gonna take out my long tail and thread my darning needle with it, and I'm just gonna let you watch how I sew this on. I know everybody has their own method, but this is just how I do mine. Alright, so I think you get the gist of it, and I'm gonna skip ahead to when the flower's completely sewn on. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and weave in my end up through the petal, because I don't want to do it through the green, and I don't want to fudge it by attempting to do it under the flower, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go up through the petal. I like to weave in my ends by going up through a few loops. And then I will skip the last loop I went through and go back through, and this kind of anchors it down. And then I will skip the last loop I went through again and go back up, and this just really ensures that that end is not going to come out. As you can see here, I'm doing the same thing for the ends on the hat. Oops, sorry, I just hit the camera. So for the last end, and this is how I weave in the ends here for my bucket hats as well, I'm just going to thread my needle, and then I'm just gonna go around the circle and do that same thing where I skip the last loop I went through and then go back around in the other direction. Usually I do this a bit more intensely for hats because I really want to make sure that the first row is not loosening up on people. So this is what my hat's looking like so far, but me being me, I have to be extra and add some multimedia. If I had the choice and I found the flower on Amazon, I would have bought this water lily on Amazon, but I couldn't find one that wasn't stiff, gross, I don't know. So instead I'm just going to take my thread and try and mimic some of the lines that come naturally on a lily pad. I pulled out a long thread and I'm holding both loose ends together and threading it through my needle. The reason I'm doing it this way is because I'm going to anchor through that loop once I go through the hat. Now you don't have to do this, and you definitely don't have to use thread. You could also just as easily grab a sewing machine and sew these lines on. I'm just lazy, so I don't want to take down my sewing machine off the top of the fridge. I'm too short, and I also don't want to have to re-thread it with the right color. So I'm just going to loop around here, and I'll show you why I have the two loose ends together, if I can hang on to it. So I'm going to go through the loop right here, and then I'm just going to pull that tight, and that's going to anchor that thread on there for me. Now I'm not going to make my insides look too pretty on this hat, because if it really bothers me, I can just go ahead and put some green fleece up underneath the top of that hat. It'll also add a little bit of durability to the hat. So right here, I'm just kind of measuring and trying to figure out the elasticity of my hat that comes naturally with a crochet stitch, and how tight I want each of these threads to be. I want to make sure it has some give, but not too much to where it looks like a wobbly line. So to kind of make this be a continuous line without it being too much slack, I am coming back up from the bottom, and I'm going to part these threads and go right through it. This just makes less space for these threads to get snagged. And hey, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it'll give me a little bit more flexibility when it comes to how stretchy this hat is, because if you were just to sew it on, that would definitely not have any elasticity to it, and it may make the hat look a little bit funny if someone were to put it on. So I'm gonna keep doing this, and I'm gonna vary the lengths. I'm not gonna manage how the underside is looking, but basically I'm just kind of wrapping randomly. So here's the hat with all the lines completed, and now I'm going to determine if I want to put these beads on there. Knowing me, I probably am, but I don't know if it's going to look that great. So here you can just see me kind of trying to get a feel for the layout and what I think would look best. Alright, so I think this is the general layout I'm gonna go with. I'm not totally sure. I'm probably gonna take these beads off to sew them on and completely forget where I had them, but we'll see where it ends up. Alright, so I got my not so trusty sewing kit. Everything else is on top of my fridge with my sewing machine, and I don't feel like climbing up. I'm just searching for a darker green than this because I don't want it to show up too much when I sew the beads on. So I'm opting for this darker green. It's close enough to me. I know I have a better match, but I don't want to go running around looking for it, so I'm just going to go with this. For a needle, I recommend choosing one that doesn't have a super wide eye. I guess it doesn't matter if you use plastic beads, but if you use plastic beads, they won't be as clear as glass would be. And the reason you want that thin eye for glass beads is because if it gets stuck and you try to pull it through, it could break the glass. So here I'm just going to cut my length of thread. I'm going to be threading this one onto my needle with only one of the loose ends this time. And the reason I don't use the tack down method is because when I do one end, I can wrap around my beads and I can tie a knot underneath every individual bead I place on. The reason I do this is because those little threads aren't going to show up underneath your hat a whole lot, and it's just a lot easier than having all those threads jumping around, just like what I did with the accents for the lily pads. So I'm just gonna minimize my mess and, you know, I'm gonna tie my knots. So I threaded one end and then I tied both ends together. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat. She's in the other room and she's in heat and baby wants out. So to thread on my bead, I come up from underneath my hat with my needle. And then I go through the hole on my bead and go back in the hat near where I came up through the hat originally. Now this is going to be like the tack down method, only this time it's knotted, so there's a bit of a tail that I can grab onto when I go to tie my knots. So you're going to part the threads, and that knot you tied on the end is going to prevent your thread from slipping off your needle. I'm going to go back up through one more time. And then I'm going to go through my bead again, and this is just going to add a little bit of durability to it. See, now I have that tail because I tied the knot instead of tacking it down. And now I can just tie those two tails together. And I like to tie it a couple of times to really make sure it's down. And then I cut it, and I do that for every single bead. So before I put my bead back on my needle, I'm going to tie that knot so I can have that tail again for the next time I need to tie it and cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of my beads on, and then I will show you the completed hat. And the hat is complete. So thank you very much for watching. If you guys want to leave a comment and recommend future videos or ideas, go ahead and do so. Give the video a like so other people can find me. Subscribe for future content. And you can follow me on Instagram or Pinterest. If you want, you can go to my shop and check out the patterns I have for sale. I currently am selling bucket hat kits. It includes everything except for the hook, and you get the pattern through your email. My site is cheaper than my Etsy, so I highly recommend you check it out. Thank you for watching, and you guys have a great day.